You've probably heard about the great judgment day of God. What's it like? What's it for? When does it happen? Daniel chapter 7 unravels some of these questions. The book of Daniel is divided roughly into two halves. The first half contains stories written in concrete terms. The second half is mostly in symbolic language. But let's be clear, symbols are not pie-in-the-sky stuff. They are pictorial language used to describe physical reality. The background event of chapter 7 occurs 10 years before the fall of Babylon, before the Persians came on the scene, and while the crown prince Belshazzar is still on the throne, while his father King Nebuchadnezzar is acting like a monk in a distant desert location to win back the favor of the moon goddess. The chapter opens with a description of a vision that Daniel sees. Its language conjures up a picture of creation with the mention of darkness, a great sea, and wind. And then hybrid animals appear that have dominion over people. It's as if this is an attempt to rewrite history. The animals that appear out of the sea are nothing like God originally created, but they've become monsters whose purpose is to devour and rule over people. Their hold is only broken when the Son of Man appears in a judgment scene that takes dominion away from the animals and restores it to humanity as God originally intended. Amazingly, Daniel is alarmed by this vision. Why would that be? Could it be that he sees in this vision of the restoration of his own people delay that goes well into the future? If so, there is no hope in this vision for him. So he's given some explanation. The parade of animals simply depicts a procession of successive and oppressive empires. However, despite oppressive powers ruling earth, God is in control and will ultimately take back that control. The saints of the Most High refer to ordinary people affected by the conflict between good and evil, played out by those successive empires. After the last world empire, and there would be 4 empires from Daniel's day to the end, there would be a divine judgment upon the earth taking place in heaven. The activities of the empire depicted by a horn on the last beast would include wearing out, like clothing, the people of God. This indicates never-ending oppression. As we see from history, there has been one tragic campaign after another to root out from the earth any vestige of allegiance to God, feeding Christians to the lions or to the gladiators in the Circus Maximus and the Colosseum, the Crusades, the Inquisition, the Bartholomew's Day Massacre, the 30 Years' War, the Holocaust, and on and on. No one has been safe. However, although that may be the norm for human history, this vision of Daniel affirms that this is not the way history will end up. This is not the norm that God intends for us. And Daniel chapter 7 is his outline of what he plans to do to get things back on track. The solution focuses on a figure called the Son of Man. The answer to all the oppression of the hybrid animals is the archetypical human being. It is no coincidence that Jesus uses this name for himself 30 times just in the Gospel of Matthew alone. Here is introduced the restoration of the status quo of Eden, when people had dominion over the animals and not the other way around. Remembering, of course, that for Daniel, animals are symbolic of empires. This may be figurative language, but it is describing a concrete reality. What happens when the Son of Man turns up is that all people and all nations who have been under the domination of despots will now serve him. The throne room where the King of the universe sits doubles as a temple or a place of worship, and the Son of Man, the Messiah figure, who is both king and priest, receives dominion, glory, and a kingdom. This is exactly what happens in the flow of the events of chapter 2, paralleled by the various metals of the image being swept aside by the stone cut out without hands. And what happens specifically in that judgment? Two things. First, dominion is taken away from the oppressors, the animals. And second, the dominion that has been usurped by the monsters is restored to the people who have been oppressed. In other words, all earthly powers have been replaced by God Himself, which is a new reality that lasts into eternity. And that is the reality that both you and I can look forward to.